Welcome to the Spirit of Faith Political Prophetics Podcast with your host, Dr. Paula Price. Learn from civil and kingdom leaders, politicians, city and state officials, and more. Combine faith with facts and discover how God starts everything with a prophet. Because they give God vivas, a voice, influence, vote, access, and seat at the tables of this world.
First of all, Lance, I want to thank you for agreeing to do this with me. As you know, I'm here talking to leaders, apostles, prophets, politicians, etc., on Christians in politics and why the prophetic should be included in the prophetic spiritual lineup. So
interesting subject. We don't normally go there. That's an interesting one.
Yes, so I just want to get your thoughts on it.
Yes.
And then before we close, that you would give a prayer for the prophets
for sure.
that are running for office.
For sure.
Okay.
First of all, it's a very Jewish thing. It's interesting to me that people get a little bit sensitive about the idea of prophets in politics. But if you go to Judeo-Christian history, the kings were advised by the prophets. When you read the Old Testament, you read Isaiah, you read Daniel, you read Jeremiah. What are you reading? You're reading the majority of the Old Testament written by prophets who are counselors and advisors to kings.
Yes.
And in some cases, during periods of extraordinary military activity, they had the ability to kind of do what we do in the CIA and the FBI is remote viewing. These guys were masters of it. They would literally see what the enemy was doing in their tent.
Right.
And then they tell the king, here's how they're going to approach you, to the point where enemies were paranoid that they had some listening device in their tent. That's in the Bible, folks. So when you get to the New Testament, the problem with the New Testament is that you're looking at the beginning of something. So whenever you look at the beginning,
you're right.
you see, you have to go to there's DNA, but you don't see a whole model. Because it was only the first 70 years of church history. But I'll give you something here for everyone that wants to know about prophets and the occult and politics.
That's important.
It's chapter 13, Paul's first missionary journey. First one. He's sent out by his home church, Antioch, him and Barnabas. And the first place they go is to an island. They come to Paphos on an island, and there they meet. Get the description. A sorcerer and false prophet named Bar-Jesus, who was an attendant and consultant to the proconsul Sergius Paulus. What I love about Luke is that he writes the New Testament with specificity and detail that could be proved archaeologically in history.
Wow.
He gives you the name of Sergius Paulus, who will be confirmed as a proconsul, and the Bible says he was an intelligent man. And he sent for Barnabas and Saul to hear what it was that they were doing in his territory, what they were preaching. But the sorcerer, now he's a false prophet, now he's called a sorcerer, Elymas, opposes and tries to turn the proconsul away from the faith. And I'll stop there to say this. Intelligent people will seek help from any source. Do you know one of the vulnerabilities we have in corporate offices is they'll go to mysticism, tarot card readings, psychics. They won't call them witches and sorcerers. They'll simply call them mediums and remote viewers. They'll give advanced futurists. They'll give language which renders it somewhat mystical and sophisticated. But it still comes down to what you would say accurately is occult, or people dabbling in the in reaching into information from forbidden sources, meaning dark sources, versus a prophetic, which is God opening the eyes to see something. The difference between the two is profound. There's a false prophet advising an intelligent man.
Exactly.
And what I want you to know is intelligent people can fall prey to the seduction of this, because any advantage I can have in competition, any insight I can get, especially in an amoral universe where there's no real absolute truth or biblical conviction, I'll go to any source that has an opportunity to me. My wife came out of advanced occult activity. Strange thing, they're very advanced. So this isn't a Pentecostal, eccentricity to me. It's a very practical thing. She lived rent-free in Providence, Rhode Island, for a year on Benefit Street. I said, how did you do that? She said, well, her girlfriend and her, who was a Jamaican witch, put a spell on the Jewish landlord, Sid Blazer. I knew the landlord. Put a spell on Sid so that he wouldn't collect rent. I said, what happened? She said, well, we bound his mind and he never collected rent because he forgot to collect rent from us. This is for real,
Isn't
folks.
that something, folks?
So I said, well, what did you do? She goes, even as a non-Christian, she said, I felt bad about it. So I told Sid, I said, Sid, I feel kind of bad because we really do owe you for rent. He said, it's impossible. He goes, next thing you know, there's a knock on the door. He goes, hey, you owe me a lot of money. She goes, I know, Sid, I know. So Annabelle took responsibility for paying Sid Blazer back. But I knew then, when I had ministered to her, I became a Christian, I led her to Jesus, and she told me about her journey in the occult. And I realized then, what you might think is really silly, she was practicing it. And she renounced it all. But this stuff is very real, isn't it?
It is real.
And intelligent people can be seduced by the influence of people that are occultic practitioners.
Or the need to know tomorrow's answers today. Because I'm having a big meeting. Because my board is ready to make a deal. They will go wherever anybody can tell them is the invisible push in the natural realm.
Yeah.
And so I have just a last question.
Interesting.
What would you say to the prophets who say, well, you know, the church, God doesn't really call us to get into politics? I mean, could you encourage a young prophet to say, okay, God needs you in politics based on what you just read?
Yeah, I would say.
Because they'll say that's the
I'd say
Bible.
you want to be really frustrated? Be waiting for a pulpit to open up for you to practice your prophetic gift.
Amen.
Be waiting for a gifted preacher with a big church and a board to step aside and let you be discovered. The truth of the matter is, if you're going to be discovered, I did an event in Hollywood for a big multi-level company, and I can remember what was so strange was I went out to my somehow I got involved with prophesying at the event. And I had my CDs and I was signing the albums and handing them out. And then people said, well, do you have anything to tell me? They thought that I was a psychic. And so I realized, oh my gosh, they have more faith for prophecy in the secular world than Christians do. So I said, well, I'm not a psychic. I'm a Christian. Then all of a sudden, boom, God gave me a word. But I'll tell you this. And then I give them a word from the Lord. Then the next one comes up. And then it's word of mouth. They're lining up, wanting me to sign a CD and give them a word. And when I watched that line of hungry people at a secular conference saying, do you have something for me? I said, how could you deny people your gift? Whether it's political, whether it's in business, whether it's in arts and media. If you're a prophet, when God opens the door, take your gift through the door and practice the art of telling people the things that God wants them to hear.
Wow.
And you'll be surprised how it will facilitate your promotion in that area.
Well, I want to thank you. Can you give us a quick prayer for our audience, especially those people who are afraid to go into the secular realm with their prophetic ministry?
In the name of Jesus, I am commanding you to die to your ego and sensitivities and serve the living God. All of us have a limited number of days on this earth. When you stand before Jesus, he's going to want to know, what did you do with the gifts I gave you? You don't want to hide them and bury them and say, here it is, at least I didn't mess up. The Bible teaches that doesn't come with a blessing, that comes with a rebuke. You want to be someone that took that gift and grew it, even if occasionally you mess it up. The grace of God, every time I made a mistake, the grace of God picked it up for me and said, at least you fell in the right direction. And I call forth in Jesus' name, multiplied visions and dreams, intuitions and senses, hunches and images, that God is going to show you unique ways in which you hear. I had the privilege of traveling with Kim Clement, a great prophet from South Africa. And I was with him during a period of his ministry where God began to minister to him in cartoons. And I was there. It was hilarious because we were in a live meeting in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And a woman stood before him. And I could see Kim was frustrated on the platform. He closed his eyes. He's rebuking the devil. Finally, he just yells the name, Garfield. And the woman drops to her knees and says, that's my boy. And he goes, Garfield is coming out of jail. He's in prison right now. By Christmas, he will be out. He just speaks Garfield. I said, after the meeting, we were at dinner. I said, what was that? He goes, he didn't want to tell me. He said it would reduce or compromise the dignity of the prophetic. I said, come on, it's me. He said, I saw Garfield the cat over her head. And I thought the devil was mocking me. And then I kept seeing Garfield the cat. And every time I closed my eyes, I'm waiting for God to speak the word Garfield, because he said, I hear God, I don't see. And suddenly he said, now God's leading me in a unique way. I'm seeing images. I go to a restaurant after that, Dearborn, Michigan. He and I had a restaurant. Waitress comes over, doesn't even, we don't know the story. She says, just want to tell you, Kim, it's been a pleasure serving you, but I'm going to be going to work and I got a new job. And Kim goes, wait a second. His name is Bill, and you better keep an eye on him. He doesn't have good intentions. She's like ready to drop her plate. She's a waitress. He goes, how did you know that? He goes, I'm just telling you, it doesn't matter how I know. Just be careful. So when she goes, obviously, guys around him go, how did you get that? He was always self-conscious about it because it would reduce the grandeur of the prophetic to tell you how he got it. I said, come on, tell me. He goes, the moment she came over, I saw Bill Murray's face. Bill Murray. So God used an SNL character, a cartoon character. What I'm trying to tell you is, in the same way that God will speak in ways you do not expect, you will minister in ways you have not anticipated. Don't hinder the creativity of God. That's my prayer for you in Jesus' name.
Well, I certainly want to thank you for taking the time out. I know how busy you are. And I don't know about anybody else. Were you guys excited? Because I got excited and I do this for a living. Hey, make sure you play this several times and don't forget to share, and then share some more, because you are how this thing is going to get around the planet. God bless you. This is Dr. Paula Price with Taking It All.
And give your name again for where your podcast will be located. How can people get it?
You can go to drpaulaaprice.com. If you want to meet the political Paula, go to meetpaulaprice.com. And I am on Facebook as Apostle Paula Price. I'm on Rumble and everything else. And of course, YouTube. So you can find me all of those places. Now, do me a favor. If you're going to go to drpaulaaprice.com, I want you to take an assessment, because you know what? God has a way of letting you know how he built you to serve him in this area. So again, drpaulaaprice.com.
Thank you for tuning in to the Spirit of Faith Political Prophetics podcast. If you are a local, regional, or national civil or kingdom leader, politician, or city or state official interested in being interviewed by Dr. Price, visit okspiritoffaith.com and complete the interview request form.